Well, hello everybody. My name's Making Sang, first name Making, and today we've got the wonderful Zara Smith with us today. Let me bring her up to the screen. How
Hi,
are you, Zara?
I'm brilliant. Thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for asking. Now, you're here today because you're going to be our amazing guest speaker. We loved you so much last year. We've asked you again this coming Tuesday. And it's a special day because we're going to be celebrating International Women's Day, aren't we?
Yes, we are, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Oh, no, thank you. And we're going to be talking about authentic feminine leadership. Now, let's talk a little bit about that. What does that actually mean?
Yes, the reason that authentic feminine leadership is something that I think is really, really important to talk about, particularly in this time in the world right now, is that a lot of times as women, we have spent, particularly if we've worked in corporate, we spent a lot of time mimicking masculine leadership and becoming more masculine than what we really are. And what I want to ask women is how can we step back from that and be more of our authentic self? Because there is power in our softness. And I think it's recognizing that femininity is far deeper than just appearances. It can be different traits that we all carry, such as being intuitive, being that little bit softer, more compassionate, more empathetic, and realizing where that is really powerful and that it is deliberately there to balance out the harshness of masculine leadership. But a lot of us have stepped out of that. We've mimicked and masked because we feel like we need to prove ourselves versus men. And actually, what we were already was already perfectly good enough. So this session is really about sitting and working out where have we stepped out of our authentic self, become uncomfortable with our authentic self, and how can we re-accept that and re-accept our femininity as part of doing that as well. Because that's going to be really, really important as a leader in how we cultivate that loyalty and that love and belonging and the creativity and reflection that all stands for feminine leadership traits. So it's about having the self-awareness to begin to start doing that exercise.
Now, you worked in the corporate world before you became a coach for business owners. And so you were in that corporate environment where you were probably mimicking masculine traits. Where were you? I mean, did you find yourself doing that and you cut and you then became self-aware of what you were doing?
Yes, so I started in buying and negotiation about 12 years ago. And in that role, we tended to find, with it being a very masculine dominated area, that the mold of leadership was very masculine. It's very action orientated. And it was also very sort of hard, shall we say. And what I tended to find, and what other women were doing as well, was we were mimicking that mold in order to, because that's what we felt we needed to be in order to be successful. As a negotiator, it's not a celebrated virtue to be particularly emotional or empathetic. In fact, as a negotiator, we're actually trained not to be that. And what I noticed a big difference is that my attitude towards leadership was very much more masculine orientated until I had my son. And then when I became a mother, I kind of took a different approach, but I saw my results completely skyrocket from being more of myself than being more of that more masculine, hard-nosed leader. And I realized that actually we can step out of being that and be just as successful, and actually being that bit more softer, being that more empathetic is what's needed in order to create that connection and to get better results.
And also, you talked about, being softer is no longer seen as a weakness. Is that right?
Absolutely. That it is deliberate for women to be softer because it balances out the harshness of masculine leadership. We need both. Otherwise, the world feels really, really hard. So if we're constantly mimicking masculine leadership and that hardness, we are creating the imbalance. So it's about recognizing that, stepping back from that and realizing, well, what parts of my behaviors are actually learned behaviors and not really my authentic self? Where have I been hiding myself away because I don't feel that that's enough, or that it's too weak or too vulnerable, or it isn't going to be received well, when actually you will be received properly. Let's say that.
So awareness is one thing. Now, the next thing is to step into our authentic self. So, what are the traits that we need to recognize in ourselves, and what can we do to change that?
I think a big one is particularly for women is using our intuitiveness, because we've all been born with that innate ability to be able to read our children's needs before they can speak. And we can also do that for our peers and people that we're around as well. We have that natural inbuilt ability. So it's how we utilize that more in order to help people be their best selves. You know, we can create that connection with people by seeing what is unsaid. And that is a really, really powerful trait to be able to have. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily just a trait that only female leaders have, it's not. But it is a superpower for women that we can certainly use a lot more. Another trait that I would say is being more empathic, forgiving, and tolerant as well. It's, again, it helps create a world that gives balance and gives equal opportunities and diversity and inclusion that we so really need. And it's something that I've talked about quite a bit on LinkedIn about, as women, female leaders, it really is time for us to start to create those board tables, not keep fighting for the seats around the board tables, but to create the board tables that are inclusive and diverse, because a lot of us do have the skills to create those board tables, but it's about having the confidence to then go off and build the board tables.
Now, you're going to be our guest speaker this coming Tuesday at the Quake House in Doncaster, where we're going to be discussing this a little bit more. Now, for people who want to come along on Tuesday, what are they going to be expecting from you? What are we going to be looking at?
So I will go through in detail about what the differences are between authentic feminine leadership and perhaps where we're at now. Understanding where we can demonstrate quite wounded feminine energy versus empowered feminine energy, and having that self-awareness to correct yourself when you're doing that. Because when you are acting from a wounded place, you're actually giving your power away, and understanding where we can take that power back. And there will also be a workbook to go through as well, where we'll ask questions and we'll go through and have that self-reflection moment to understand, where am I being more masculine and where am I defaulting to that idea of what I think I should be rather than who I really am, and who am I within that as well. So there'll be some journaling prompts. There'll be, like I say, workbook and questions to sit and go through and do that little bit of deeper work to understand how can we start to show up more as our authentic self, and how can we do that confidently as well.
Now, I'm going to put you on a spot a little bit here. Because you've been working with a lot of business owners and getting them from wounded to awareness to empowerment. Can you share any success stories and, where you've seen that transformation, and not necessarily, seeing the complete transformation, because it is an ongoing process, isn't it? But are there any clients that, I mean, and you don't need to share names either, if anonymity is important.
Yeah.
Do you have any, wonderful stories to share of the transition that you've seen?
Yeah, definitely. So there was a lady that I've worked with that has had, even though she's very confident normally, she does tend to hide away quite a few of her traits that are, how can I say it? So she's a leader within a business, and again, similar to this female leadership, she has been really, really successful. But she knows that she wants to start a business, but she's been struggling with the ideas that she wanted to do. And we took a step back and we had a look at, what are her skills and abilities? What is she great at? What does she know her gaps are that she needs to work on? And we went through understanding a bit more about the backstory of where her confidence has dipped and where some of those issues have arose from. Because sometimes it can come from our childhood experiences, our childhood beliefs, our perceptions around about the world around us. Our childhood influences how we see the world and what we're capable of massively. So we went through quite a bit of that work to understand, what was her perception of herself following that. And from that, with mindset techniques like NLP and with journaling, we went through and then corrected some of those beliefs. One of her beliefs was that she didn't always feel good enough, and she had massive imposter syndrome. And it wasn't that she wasn't capable of doing it. She absolutely was. It was just that there had been times where she'd had a confidence knocked, and it reinforced that belief that she wasn't good enough. So we went through those instances and looked at, well, it depends on the perception of those instances. You know, is that really about you, or is that about the person who knocked your confidence? 9 times out of 10, it's about the person who knocked your confidence, not actually you. So once we went through that, and we went through the kind of perception that we've got about certain things that have happened to us, then she could kind of release certain beliefs that she'd given about it, held to them, and reinforce them with more empowered beliefs, with guided meditations, and also journaling as well. Because you can reset a habit after 21 to 28 days. So you can reset your belief system by reinforcing it over that time period.
Well, Zara, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you today. So excited to be working with you again on Tuesday and receiving that workbook. So together and with our My Network for Women members, we can also look to learn from you on how we can step into our authentic feminine leadership. Any final words before we end this broadcast?
Yeah, it would be absolutely great to see lots of women there. If you have got any questions, you can email me at hello@zarasmithcoaching.com, or visit my website www.zarasmithcoaching.com. There will be the workbook available after the talk that will be available on my website. But it would be great to see you there. Make sure you book tickets on my Network for Women's website.
Wonderful. Well, we'll see you and celebrating International Women's Day this coming Tuesday, Quaker House, 10:30. You can get your tickets there, free for members and free for first timers, and £12 for everybody else. We'll see you there. Thanks, Zara.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Bye bye.